Hey, folks. Welcome to the Pilgrim Faith Podcast, an initiative of the Davenant Institute. You might also notice a new Pilgrim Faith blog under the resources page of our main website. So, what are we doing here? Why another podcast? Aren't there enough of those out there? That's a fair question. There are a couple of ways of capturing our goals here, but let's start with saying something out loud that we don't often say out loud enough, and that's this. We're sometimes confused. Christians living in our modern world feel its intellectual pressures and sometimes also feel the limitation of some typical answers to our questions. The goal of the Pilgrim Faith podcast, though, is to see this situation not merely as an object of anxiety, but as an object of adventure. To be sure, the stakes are high, and great caution is required as we work our way through the very important questions that we have. But here we want to channel that wise notion of the ancients that philosophy begins in wonder. It is true that we live in confusing times, but it's also true that we live in exciting times where so many resources are available to us and from many different disciplines. What we want to do here is to craft a long-term interdisciplinary conversation that helps us get at our questions in a way that pushes us adventurously toward wisdom. So we're not here to be mere answer people. Rather, what we'll be doing is conducting interviews with Christian scholars and intellectuals that are fairly open-ended and that juice them for wisdom, so to speak. We do not endorse everything that comes out of everyone's mouth, but we think that the distinctive contribution of each person will shine the most when put in conversation with others. And that's what we aim to do here. So take something like the contemporary debates over the meaning of Genesis 1 to 11, or the foundation of contemporary Christian political thought, or contemporary debates over various bits of theology, such as the doctrine of sin, or the role of good works in salvation, etc. Our goal here is to sit folks down and ask them good questions while trying to kind of sympathetically channel various registers of concern, and then allow the wisdom of our interviewees to shine and be elicited. And when you talk about the same subject with people coming from backgrounds, on the one hand from biblical studies, from pastoral life, systematic theologians, from history, from philosophy, from archaeology, if it's relevant, psychology, etc., what emerges are various threads that together weave a tapestry in the direction of that wide and dense world of wonder in which God has placed us and given us gifts to discover. To be sure, we're sensitive to the boundaries here. Analogously, Adam's task was not merely to expand the garden, but also to protect its borders. In our case, this means preserving the integrity of our Protestant Orthodox heritage, while also drawing upon the resources it gives us to adventure out into the world of the sanctified imagination. It is our conviction that a curiosity of mind and a desire to expand our own vantage point are means by which we can arrive at truth more fully and deeply. So what we aim to craft here is a conversation, and an open-ended one that will perhaps feel like a breath of fresh air to those who are itching to be deeply rooted in Orthodox Christianity, but also brutally honest about what remains unclear for them, and bold to discover the wisdom that can unite those two things. The metaphor of the pilgrim is apt here. The idea isn't that we have no destination or that we're just wandering nowhere. Indeed, we're going somewhere concrete, and we have distinctive resources in our knapsack of natural and special revelation. And we also emphasize the necessity of virtue in moving through this pilgrimage well. But the metaphor also suggests that we're never quite in a state of arrival. Channeling this spirit, some of the Reformed Orthodox called their theology pilgrim theology. Michael Horton's recent systematic theology, in fact, is even subtitled Systematic Theology for Pilgrims on the Way. So taking up a kind of similar spirit, the idea here is that we have concrete resources and a concrete goal, but a wide and wondrous world of knowing between those two things. A world that we often avoid out of fear, but which is the glory of kings to discover. The Pilgrim Faith blog, which I mentioned a few moments ago, will contribute to and consolidate some of this conversation. But then finally, another new offering at Davenant, of which I'll also be the host, is perhaps our most overtly evangelistic-ish tool to date, the Plausible Faith Podcast. This will be an open-ended series of podcasts about which I'm really excited. And they come from my own intellectual and spiritual struggle to work through the Christian faith. I suppose I'll always be doing that just a tad until I die. But the goal is to sympathetically engage and lead others through some of their intellectual spirituals and dilemmas, using the voice of a sympathetic elder brother in the Lord, or maybe a younger brother for some people, who might have a thing or two to offer you. I don't mean to set myself up as some dude with infinite answers. I'm definitely not. But I hope I can look people in the eye and talk about our good God and about Christ and about the gospel in a way that ministers to the Christian mind and imagination. Speaking of which, each time I've worked through a particular item that I've had doubt about and had to deal with some internal skepticism or some such, any resolution I've been able to achieve has always required an expansion of imagination. It's almost never just getting new information, as it were, that makes the difference. Sometimes it's that, but more often it's confronting the fact that I'm out of touch with some basic feature of reality. And so our questions lead us to press into God's word and into his world more. And in that pressing, when accomplished before the face of a loving God, we find ourselves not only ministered to intellectually, but we also find almost inevitably some healing in our soul, a relief from some distortion that we bring to the picture. And so I'd love the opportunity to talk with you through the Christian faith. Think of this as something like a systematic theology for doubters and seekers. I'm very excited about the opportunity to partner with Davenant to do this work. Many of you who know me know that I've always planned to pursue a more traditional academic track after the completion of my PhD in humanities at the University of Texas at Dallas. Maybe that'll still happen, but I've somewhat paused that trajectory precisely because I'm really excited about the possibilities of the internet for contemporary Christian education. While the internet has complicated Christian education, it has also exponentially expanded the amount of quality material available to the average person. And like it or not, speaking pragmatically for a moment, people just do largely have an internet-mediated relationship to knowledge. And for this reason, especially because that means they have an internet-mediated relationship to a lot of bad knowledge, I think the kind of conversation we're trying to craft is so crucial for the contemporary church. We're not alone in trying to craft it, but I think that we at the Davenant Institute have the capacity and opportunity to significantly aid it and to help it grow. Similarly, the Plausible Faith podcast is our attempt to craft a parallel conversation that speaks to doubters inside the faith and curious outsiders to the faith at the same time. We aim to persuade others and to re-persuade ourselves of the truth, goodness, and beauty of the Christian faith, wrapped in the rhetorical voice of a fellow traveler alongside them. You can take a look for yourself, but I'm hopeful that these might aid doubting souls and even curious outsiders to the faith who need a friend to help give them a hand. We hope that this vision excites you as well. Do know that Davenant subsists on the donations of faithful partners like yourself, and it would be a joy to us, and we think also to you, for you to take a part in supporting these labors. As well, especially if you know of anyone who might be interested in supporting us, please pass our material on to them. Most importantly, and this is no throwaway line for us, please pray that God would be pleased to use our little efforts to edify his saints and to encourage other men to find relief in his perfect goodness and trustworthiness. Our grand faith is not the limiting structure of the wondering mind, but for the Christian, its catalyst and also its greatest achievement, its crowning jewel and delight. So from us to you, Happy New Year. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you around.